Let's do it, folks. Hello and welcome to Dangerous Ideas. We are starting off with breaking news. As many of you have probably seen in the past couple of hours, Iran has responded to Israel's ongoing attacks against Lebanon, terrorist attacks against Lebanon by an international law definition. These have been terrorist attacks against Lebanon by Israel. It is against international law to booby trap devices that are regular consumer goods, which Israel did. It is against international law to obliterate several city blocks to kill one individual that you say you have the right to kill. And now Iran has responded by firing at least 200 ballistic missiles at Israel, hitting areas in Tel Aviv and elsewhere. It seemed like most were aimed at Tel Aviv. And some of you were annoyed that one of the where this video was up, one of it was titled "Iran attacks Israel." Saying Iran attacks Israel is not saying it's not a response for something. I think some of you thought that means that it's not a response, but you can say Hamas attacked Israel on October 7th, which they did, and it also is a response for the fact that they are trapped in an open-air prison. So it can be both of those things. And in fact, Al Jazeera, they've now changed their heading, but Al Jazeera had the headline, Iran attacks Israel as well. Anyway, I'll read you some of the New York Times version of what's going on. Of course, some of this is propaganda, which I'll point out here and there. But Iran launches, they say about 180, and then later they say over 200. But either way, Iran launches about 180 ballistic missiles at Israel. Iran fired, and now they're, 2 sentences later, at least 200 ballistic missiles at Israel on Tuesday. I mean, that's par for the course for the New York Times. Since the half of what they write is absolute garbage, then of course their numbers aren't going to match up. On Tuesday evening, it's evening there, obviously, an attack that marks a sharp escalation. Oh, really? Is this the escalation? I would have thought the escalation was attacking, injuring, maiming, many in critical condition, thousands of Lebanese people, many of them innocent civilians, killing nurses, doctors, an 8-year-old girl. I would have thought that was the big escalation. But no, it's Iran responding. That's the big escalation, apparently, according to the New York Times. I would have thought that maybe the genocide in Gaza was the big escalation. No. It's Iran is escalating things. And of course, this is also what the U.S. government just said a few minutes ago in their press conference. Iran's aggression is really... I think this might be a response for what has been done to Lebanon, for what has been done to Gaza. And in fact, in that strike that killed Hezbollah's Secretary General Hassan Nasrallah, that was the strike where they dropped dozens of 2,000-pound bunker buster bombs in order to kill him and others. In that attack, they also killed an Iranian official, Iranian general, I believe. So it was also an attack on Iran. Let's see, continue from New York Times. Sharp escalation in the long simmering conflict between Israel and Iran and could tip the region further into turmoil and full-blown war. It's funny because Israel has murdered 41,000 people, not including famine and disease. 41,000 people. Like, that sounds like a bit more than turmoil. Okay, that's a genocide. It is 70% of them are women and children. Like, New York Times loves to act like there's just been something simmering in the Middle East. It's a light boil. No, it's a goddamn genocide. Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps said in a statement that the missile attack had been in retaliation for the assassinations of Hezbollah's leader Hassan Nasrallah, Hamas's political leader Ismail Haniyeh, and an Iranian commander. Okay, commander, I said general. The statement said Iran would launch more missiles if Iran were attacked. And in case you need reminding, Iran had also been attacked by Israel when Israel bombed their consulate in Syria what was that, a month ago, not too long ago, and bombed their consulate in Syria and murdered several Iranian generals. Also, and there's not a lot of people saying this, but I think it's likely that the Iranian president was also murdered by Mossad. I mean, his helicopter goes down in the middle of all this, and Israel has shown that they have the ability, they have been capable of putting explosive devices into these people's walkie-talkies, their cell phones, what have you. So perhaps that was what helped lead to the helicopter death of Iran's president. Iran has a new president now, obviously. A spokesman for the Israeli military, Rear Admiral Daniel Hagari, said a handful of missiles had landed in central and southern Israel, but most of them had been intercepted. Now, of course, the IDF often does this. I mean, I don't know how many were intercepted by the quote-unquote Iron Dome, which takes 4 countries in order to stop many of these missiles. But generally, the IDF will say, oh, we stopped them all. And then slowly you'll start to hear the truth as to how many were actually stopped. And it started as we stopped when Iran fired 300 a few months ago. It started as we stopped 96% of them or something like that. And eventually it came down to 86% of them. And eventually we found out that not only did many of them hit their targets, but the ones that were actually the larger, hypersonic, powerful missiles, they actually all hit their targets. So you can't believe anything coming out of the IDF's face holes. Anyway, that is what's going on right now. This breaking news that Iran has fired back at Israel in response. And of course, the U.S. and Israel and all the propaganda will try and tell you, oh, this is Iran being aggressive. This is Iran committing war crimes. This is Iran. No, this is a response to a genocide. Okay. And you don't have to support war to understand that this is a response. And Iran had said as much. And it's also a response for the killing of their generals in the Syrian consulate. Also, if you need reminding, consulates in international law are supposed to be sovereign territory, as are embassies. They're not supposed to be bombed under international law. I mean, again, Israel is trying to create this new normal where they can break all level of international law. And so it's almost ridiculous to try and even list everything that all the international laws that Israel is breaking, but it is a lot of them. So to give you a little more on Israel's invasion of Lebanon, their attack on Lebanon, that's prior to Iran firing these missiles. Biden and Harris call the Israeli strike killing Hezbollah's Nasrallah a measure of justice. That's right. When you commit genocide and then you assassinate leaders in another country, and then you break all these international laws, this is a measure of justice, apparently. Breaking international laws is now a measure of justice, according to Biden and Harris. That's what they call this. This is what the scene looked like, which is pretty unfathomable in Beirut when they dropped these massive bunker buster bombs. And I'm just going to show the video. Sorry for those of you listening to the podcast, but you can tell by the size, this is like several city blocks up in absolute flames, up in an inferno. I had read that there was essentially no emergency medical treatment going around because everything was obliterated. Everything was incinerated. There was nothing to save. But the scale of this is just unbelievable. And these are USA made bunker buster bombs, 2,000-pound USA made bunker buster bombs that just obliterated this entire neighborhood or several neighborhoods in order to kill this one Hezbollah leader, which also many are saying shows just how much Israel has succeeded. Thank you, Teresa, for the donation for supporting the show. Just how much Israel and Mossad have infiltrated Hezbollah and maybe other groups as well But the fact that they knew where Nasrallah was, despite the fact that he's been off the grid, I think for several years, they said, and yet they still knew his position. It shows how much they've infiltrated all these systems. Again, much of this is breaking international law. Much of this is war crimes. This is all coming from a genocidal government. We should just remember that as we continue to have these conversations. And of course, your mainstream media will ignore all of that, right? They may give you actual real facts, such as Iran attacks Israel. They won't mention its response. They may give you real facts about Iran shot 200 missiles at Israel. Some of them hit Tel Aviv. They may give you all of that. And yet, almost without exception, they will leave out, oh, yeah, Israel is committing genocide over in Gaza. Oh, yeah, Israel is stealing land and has continued to steal land for decades and decades from the Palestinian people. Oh, yeah, Israel is causing just death and famine and stopping aid from getting in to Gaza. They'll leave all of the backstory out. Oh, yeah, Israel is breaking international law as they bomb and attack Lebanon. They will leave all of the backstory out, and they'll just go, Iran attacked Israel, end of story, because that's how our media works. That's how our propaganda arms works. That's how our government works. That is the way they will lie to you, even in the moments that they're giving you a true fact, such as 200 missiles fired by Iran. With that being said, I want to show this is the Jordanian foreign minister, and I thought he did a beautiful job of summing this up pretty succinctly. And he's speaking at the UN. This is after Israel had begun invading Lebanon. This is after Israel had assassinated Nasrallah. But this is before Iran's response. Not sure that matters much. But anyway, this is the Jordanian foreign minister at the UN speaking to the press.
Let me add one sentence. The Israeli prime minister came here today and said that Israel is surrounded by those who want to destroy it, an enemy. We're here, members of a Muslim Arab committee mandated by 57 Arab and Muslim countries. And I can tell you here, very unequivocally, all of us are willing to, right now, guarantee the security of Israel in the context of Israel ending the occupation and allowing for the emergence of a Palestinian state, independent state, along the efforts that we all agree. He is creating that danger because he simply does not want the two-state solution. And if he does not want the two-state solution, can you ask Israeli officials, what is their end game? Other than just wars and wars and wars. I'm telling you, all of us in the Arab world here, we want a peace in which Israel lives in peace and security, accepted, normalized with all Arab countries in the context of ending the occupation, withdrawing from Arab territory, allowing for the emergence of an independent sovereign Palestinian state on June 4, 1967, lies with occupied Jerusalem as capital. That is our narrative. That is, and we will guarantee Israel's security in that context. Can you ask Israelis what's their narrative other than I'm going to continue to go to war, I'm going to kill this and kill that and destroy this and this, that? The amount of damage that Israeli government has done, 30 years of efforts to convince people that peace is possible, this Israeli government killed it. The amount of dehumanization, hatred, bitterness will take generations to navigate through. So ultimately the question is, we want peace. And we've laid out a plan for peace. Ask any Israeli official, what is their plan for peace? You'll get nothing because they're only thinking of the first step. We're going to go destroy Gaza, inflame the West Bank, destroy Lebanon. And after that, they have no plan. We have a plan. We have no partner for peace in Israel. There is a partner for peace in the Arab world.
57, I believe it was 57, he said, 57 Arab and Muslim nations have come together and offered to come to a peace, to come to a two-state solution in which Israel agrees to no longer attack Lebanon, no longer commit genocide. They actually have a plan. Now, I understand that the two-state solution, as said by Israel, is actually a canard. It's a trick to get everybody to think they somehow want that, when in fact they've stood in the way of it for fucking decades. Okay, they keep kicking the can down the road. They will never actually endorse it. And he's got an excellent point, the Jordanian foreign minister, that They don't want anything except endless war. Their existence is endless war and endless stealing of land. That is how it works. It is an ethno state of Jewish supremacy, but do not conflate Jews around the world with Israel. They are two separate things. Israel does not speak for all Jews, but there's an actual plan there brought to them by 57 countries. And yet Israel shoots it down every time. Israel has shot down every ceasefire plan in Gaza. Israel has assassinated the top negotiator for Hamas. They have assassinated the top negotiator for Hezbollah. So basically, they assassinate the people that even could or had begun sitting down to discuss peace plans. That is their plan, to assassinate the negotiators, to assassinate those pushing for ceasefire. They have no other plan than that. It is just to keep killing. And as you are seeing from the United States, the more killing that Israel does, the more the United States, quote unquote, supports them. The more killing Israel does, the more bombs the U.S. sends to them. So when Israel wasn't sending bombs, they were actually receiving less bombs, less aid. So it's like the more genocide, the more the U.S. will reward them. It really is unbelievable. By the way, there are reports that that Netanyahu flew out of the country before the Iranian bombs started falling, and yeah, and the United States, which could end all of this, the United States at the end of the day has a say of all of this. If they would have cut off the bombs, if they would have cut off the aid, Israel would have to stop. They'd have to stop the genocide. At the end of the day, the United States is the one calling the shots if they wanted to be. And instead, not only are they not doing it, but on top of that, you have one zombie president. You have one completely bloodthirsty vice president running for president. And you have another former president running for president who's a narcissistic, megalomaniacal rapist war criminal. You have all those. That's your assortment of people to choose from. Which one do you want to lead us in this horrible times that's pushing us closer and closer to nuclear war? Which one do you want? Here's Donald Trump yesterday or something. Here's what he had to say, because he's always good for a solution, right?
But if I were the president, I would inform the threatening country, in this case, Iran, that if you do anything to harm this person, we are going to blow your largest cities and the country itself to smithereens. We're going to blow it to smithereens. You can't do that.
We're going to kill millions and millions and millions and millions of people. Woo! Yeah! Go America! Go! Kill those children! Incinerate babies! Woo!
And there would be no more threats.
Mm-hmm.
There would be no more threats. But right now, we don't have that leadership or the necessary people, the necessary leaders. We have two people, not one. We don't even know who our president is right now. Who is our president right now?
He goes off on some other stuff. I mean, he's got a point. Who is the president right now? The thing is, when he's president, you also don't know who's the president. I mean, who's making the decisions when Donald Trump was president? Huh? Who's making those decisions? Because it wasn't him a lot of the time. You know, said he's taking the troops out of Afghanistan. Nope. Said he's taking the troops out of Syria. Nope. Said he's making peace with North Korea. Nope. Boy, sounds like Donald Trump was making all those decisions, right? But I really just wanted to show you that first part where Donald Trump's like, hey, I'm going to kill more innocent people than you could ever imagine. I'm going to kill more innocent people than Israel is right now because I'm going to blow up Iran. You know how many people live in Iran? I'm going to blow up Iran. And people are cheering. The people in the crowd, yay, kill innocent people. I mean, this is how morally bankrupt so much of America has become. It is unbelievable, unbelievably repulsive. It makes vomit sick to its stomach watching these idiots speak from podiums. I mean, they shouldn't. They should be in The Hague right now. So yeah, 200 missiles from Iran right now, and we won't know for a little while just how many of those got through the Iron Dome. Oh yeah, and in terms of who exactly is our president right now, I'm gonna play two clips. Someone else put these together. Thank you, whoever did this. But two clips of Joe Biden. One, he's talking on Ukraine, and the other he's talking on Hurricane Helene that just killed well over 100 people, I believe, and destroyed lives across the entire southern United States. And so interesting to see these two clips together. The second clip is hard to hear, so I'm going to have to repeat what he says. But
I'm proud to announce a new $2.4 billion package of security assistance.
So that was the first one about Ukraine. I'm proud to announce billions of dollars more for Ukraine. And here is the same day or one day later or something.
We've given them all everything that we have. We're on the ground.
He's been asked about the victims of Hurricane Helene and whether more federal aid is going to be sent to them. And he says, we've given them all the aid we have. He said,
ahead of time.
We gave it all to them ahead of time. So no, we're not giving them any more aid.
So we're working hard.
Are there any more resources the federal government could be giving them?
Reporter asks, are there any more resources the federal government will be giving all the victims, all the towns, all the cities across the southern United States, North Carolina, Georgia, Florida, Louisiana, South Carolina? Are there more? Is there more aid coming from the federal government?
No, we have pre-planned a significant amount of it, even though they didn't ask.
No, we pre-planned a significant amount. So we're not giving any more aid to all of the victims across the United States who have had their lives destroyed, not to mention some of them killed in Hurricane Helene. And we're not going to give them any more aid, but we are going to give billions and billions of dollars more to Ukraine to fight a proxy war in which we're just hoping that it'll last for a few more years and kill a few more 100,000 Ukrainians. We're already to the point that so many of them had died that they don't even have military age men left in Ukraine. But we're going to keep that going because we don't want to let them sit down at the peace table. What do you notice between these two wars, between Ukraine and Israel? You notice that the U.S. in one case and Israel in the other case will not allow peace. Peace is anathema. It is the enemy to the U.S. empire, which includes Israel. Israel assassinates peace negotiators. Israel destroys ceasefire agreements. We now know that from leaked documents that Netanyahu's office forged Hamas documents to make it look like Hamas was stopping the ceasefire deals, when in fact Israel has stopped every ceasefire deal because they don't give a shit about the hostages. That is, they have proven that again and again. Their goal is to commit ethnic cleansing, commit genocide in Gaza, and they're going to do that no matter what. I mean, maybe not no matter what, if we can get the Israeli economy to collapse, but they're going to do that and not sit down for a ceasefire. And you see the same thing with Ukraine. Hey, can we have peace talks? Hey, every military analyst who has half a brain cell will tell you that how is the proxy war in Ukraine going to end? Well, it's going to end with Ukraine and Russia sitting down at a peace table and agreeing to something. We don't know the details, but we know that's how it ends, okay? That's how it's going to end. It's not going to end with Ukraine taking over Russia. It's not going to end with Russia taking all of Ukraine. That's how it's going to end. But instead, let's just keep the fighting going for as long as we can. Let's just keep as many people as possible dying. And anyway, these clips back to back within one day of each other, billions more dollars to Ukraine. No, we don't have any more aid to send to those struggling in America, in these states that were just destroyed by climate crisis, by Hurricane Helene. Nope. Can't send more help. Okay. I am going to, we have more stuff on Israel. I had promised to go through before the bomb started falling on Israel. I had promised to go through, since it's almost a year of this genocide. I mean, God, I did not think this would go on for a year. I knew it'd be horrific, but I did not think we'd see a year of genocide. Since we're almost at a year, I wanted to go through with the great help of Mint Press, what we now know about October 7th, the truth about October 7th. In so much of that truth has only come out in the past few months. So I'm going to get to that in just a minute. It would be great, everyone, if you could click thumbs up, click subscribe. Subscribe is free. Why would you not? Click the subscribe button, click the bell icon, and it would be great if you could follow me on both pages, rumble.com/LeeCamp and youtube.com/@RealLeeCamp. And the other thing is join my free email list. That would be awesome as well, because they can't steal that from me as easily as they can all my other channels. So you can do that if you go to LeeCamp.com. There should be a pop-up window that asks you to sign up to the free email list. And yeah, super chats are also a great way to support the show, whether you're watching it live or not. You can throw in a couple of dollars to support the show. And thank you. I know, was it Teresa already threw in a super chat? You guys rock. Love you all. And I think I'd go insane if I didn't have you all to chat with. So thanks for being here. Okay, although this is kind of on the same thread, but before I get to what we now know about October 7th, a year ago, I wanted to talk about this Mondo Weiss. They do great reporting. How Israel attempts to justify indiscriminate attacks on civilians. So, and they've got some interesting stuff in here. In the wake of Israel's brutal mass terror attack on Lebanon, deploying internationally prescribed booby traps through pagers and other communication, predictably resulting in the death and maiming of large numbers of civilians, the International Legal and Human Rights community, shocked by the blatant criminality of the attack, roundly condemned it. International humanitarian law, IHL, explicitly prohibits the use of booby traps. It prohibits the international spreading of terror among the civilian population, as was clearly intended by Israel. It prohibits the targeting of non-combatants, a status held by many of those who received the pagers. It is a clear violation of international humanitarian law, principle of precaution, as no effort was apparently made to protect civilians who were in the vicinity of the explosions. Victims included children, women, passers-by, medical personnel, civilian workers, and others. Even among the people affiliated with Hezbollah, which is both a military force, but it's also a political party. So not everybody in Hezbollah is a militant. Many were reported not involved in any way with military operations or functions. The UN Commissioner for Human Rights, 22 of the UN's mandated independent human rights experts, Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, and a broad array of prominent international lawyers all condemned the attacks as terrorism. And so they talk about how Israel tries to justify their terrorism. And they say some of their spokespeople, and the U.S. spokespeople as well, use the tired old collateral damage defense. Oh, the people hit by those exploding pagers were collateral damage. But you cannot claim that civilians were merely collateral damage if the underlying act was itself a crime. The use of prohibited booby traps is a war crime. Then there is the magic word defense, it's called. Israel's defenders try to use certain nouns as trump cards by saying the targets were Hezbollah, or the targets were terrorists, or the targets were Hamas. Then now you're in a law-free zone. No explanation necessary, right? As long as you say, oh, it was Hamas, done. You can torture them. You can kill children. You can kill women. You can kill men who have nothing to do with Hamas. You can do men who were in Hamas, but were not in a militant capacity with Hamas. You can kill doctors because, they must have been over top of Hamas. Like, you can do whatever you want as long as you say these buzzwords. You just yell Hamas, and then all manner of illegality, of war crimes is fine. Mondo Weiss says, by calling someone a terrorist or saying that they are affiliated with a group you dislike, or consider to be terrorist is not a legal argument. At the very heart of international humanitarian law is the distinction between combatants and non-combatants. Unlawful weapons and tactics remain unlawful, regardless of the buzzword labels you put on something. And you will often notice that especially in U.S. Discourse on television, the people arguing, let's say they have two people on, one who's arguing against Israel's actions, one who's defending Israel. The people arguing, even if they're arguing against Israel, often are incapable of dealing with the buzzword debate. The person defending Israel just goes, Hamas, and then everything shuts down. The guy, you can't, it's, you ever watch Pierce Morgan? I've played some of his clips. When he has someone like Low Key on or Roger Waters or something, he basically just yells Hamas at them or yells October 7th at them. And it's like the end of discussion. Short circuits everything. But of course, saying a buzzword is not a legal argument. It doesn't mean you can do whatever you want because you said the buzzword. Yet that's how Israel's defenders behave. All countries accuse their adversaries of terrorism. And that is very true. All countries do accuse the others of terrorism. However, many across the globe do not consider the Palestinian and Lebanese resistance groups to be terrorists, while they do consider Israel to be a terrorist state. To apply a racist lens in order to deny the same protections of international law to Lebanese or Palestinians is both morally reprehensible and a breach of the law itself. And then, of course, there's the smear technique. And, we've talked about this many times, calling anyone who will dare go after Israel as an anti-Semite. Anyone who dare criticize Israel, criticize their actions, criticize their terrorism, it's all anti-Semitic, right? That's all it is. But the smear has been so frequently, automatically, and disingenuously deployed against every critic and every critique that it no longer has much impact among thinking people. It is generally understood as a confession of defeat in an argument. And when you're arguing with your friends and family, you can remind them of this. When they just jump to anti-Semite, you've just acknowledged that you can't actually debate this issue because you have stopped talking about it. You're just yelling anti-Semite. It's not a debate. It's not an argument. These tactics are intended to muddy the water in the public conversation to shore up Israeli impunity and preserve the continuous flow of weapons, money, and diplomatic cover from Western countries. Okay, let's get to it. Without further ado, let's review what went down a year from now. Again, I'll just reiterate, I didn't think that we could have a mass genocide on this scale being live streamed on your goddamn laptops every day of the week for a year and not have the international community, including the U.S., somehow, and I'm, maybe not the government, but people fighting back against it. Now, many people in America are fighting back, and I obviously highlight those videos all the time, so I don't want to say that people aren't, but this is truly unbelievable carnage Israel's been able to perpetrate. Okay, so we're almost to October 7th. We're almost to 1 year, and Mint Press did a deep dive, Robert Inlakesh, on what we now know. And, obviously for the stuff you already know about this, I apologize for reiterating it, but I felt like it's been a year of genocide. It's time to actually decide what we know about October 7th. On October 7th at 6:30 a.m., the Qassam Brigades, the armed wing of Hamas, launched a military assault targeting Israeli military positions, kibbutzim, which most of you maybe know by now are, small groups of people that live together. They used to be communists. I've been to a kibbutz years and years ago for like a few hours, not like living there. They used to be communist back when Israel was kind of in their earlier founding days. And now, yes, there are groups of people living together. They still kind of claim to have some communist ideas, but they're really not anymore. But that's just a side note. Anyway, so they targeted those, and they're targeting Israeli military posts for obvious reasons. They're also targeting these kibbutzim and these settlements because these are the settlements that are closest to to Gaza, meaning stolen most recently, I guess. The land was stolen. According to a 16-page report issued by the group titled Our Narrative, their stated mission was to attack Israeli military positions and seize captives to exchange for thousands of Palestinians held in Israeli prisons. The report also acknowledged certain faults in their actions. I'm not going to go through all the proof that Israel knew about October 7th a year before October 7th, because I did that not long ago. Last week I did it. Went through all the details of how clear it was that Israel knew exactly what was going to happen. They had the exact planning document, like over 40 pages long. Was it 40 or 70 or something pages long? And guess what? Hamas almost stuck to that document exactly. So Israel knew exactly what was going to go on. You also have a lot of eyewitnesses saying that there was a 7-hour stand down order, because it took basically 7 hours for Israel to respond. Now, think about how quickly an IDF helicopter can fly. Think about how quickly that would get off the ground and be at these locations, even if the military outposts in those areas were compromised. It would be there in minutes, an hour tops, if like they didn't get the call or something. So 7 hours is bizarre unless you, I don't know, wanted to allow this to go on. But that aside, on October 7th, it was quickly reported that at least 413 Palestinians were killed in Israeli airstrikes across the Gaza Strip. That was on October 7th. However, the Israeli death toll underwent several revisions before an accurate figure emerged. So basically, number of Palestinians killed, we know immediately. Number of Israelis killed, top secret. Initially, the Israeli government stated that 1,400 Israelis had been killed. By November 10th, that number was revised down to around 1,200. And now the number stands at 1,139 killed. That included 815 civilians and 324 soldiers, police or security officers. Now, a couple of things to keep in mind. So that would be 815 civilians. A couple of things to keep in mind about the civilian number. One is many of those, 815, were killed by IDF. We will never know how many. Israel has done a good job of covering up all the evidence for us to prove who was killed by IDF and who wasn't. Israel, they announced that they were shredding and burying all of the cars that were shot up by IDF helicopters, like something like hundreds of cars. Just as one example. Also, and I did research this because I had not known this until a few days ago. Well, we'll get to this more in a second, but I'll just throw it out there because I started down this path. The Nova Music Festival, where the highest number of innocent people were killed, which was heavily shot up by IDF helicopters. The Nova Music Festival was moved to that location on the Gaza border 2 days before October 7th. And from what I read, there's not a great reason as to why. Now, that could be a crazy coincidence. And as this article will mention in a minute, Hamas did not know the Nova Music Festival was going to be there because it was moved there 2 days before. Anyway, let's continue. So if it's 815 civilians and 324 soldiers, this would suggest a civilian to combatant ratio of roughly 3.5 to 1. Civilians versus combatants killed. But that's assuming that all those civilians were not killed by the IDF and were not armed. Everybody in Israel is in the military at some point. Most of these people are armed. Most of these civilians that were in these kibbutzes, they know that they're near Gaza. They're all armed and ready for something to happen. So civilians is a weird line to draw here. If these Hamas militants are coming in to take hostages and someone runs at them with a gun, that's no longer a civilian. That's by the laws of conflict. That's actually a combatant. None of that is considered in these numbers. But even if none of that mattered, it's still a ratio of 3.5 to 1. An article that's quoted by Netanyahu and others by John Spencer. It was in Newsweek. Spencer references the 2016-2017 Battle of Mosul in Iraq to justify, basically he's justifying Israel's genocide, to justify what he deems an acceptable civilian to combatant ratio in U.S. wars. And he highlights that in the Battle of Mosul in Iraq, the ratio was 4-1. 10,000 civilians were killed and only 2,000 ISIS fighters. Now, here's the thing. First of all, you have to think that's fine. I don't think that's fine. I think that's horrific, not to mention the fact that the U.S. helped create ISIS. So you'd have to start with the premise that killing 10,000 civilians to kill 2,000 ISIS fighters is just awesome. And I don't agree with that premise. However, so he points to the 4-1 ratio and says, this is just normal warfare, right? 4-1, kill 4 civilians, get 1 bad guy. Kill 4 civilians and then also get 1 bad guy. Using this military logic and assuming Hamas was responsible for every Israeli death on October 7th, which is not true, they achieved a more favorable civilian to combatant kill ratio than the U.S. did in Mosul. But this is Israel trying to complain, trying to claim these ratios are acceptable. Therefore, if they've killed 10,000 Hamas fighters in Gaza, as Israel claims, which is, again, not true, they claim they've killed 10,000. Well, what do you know? It's 4-1. Or actually, I guess it's 3-1, right? 40,000, 10,000 are combatants, according to Israel. 3-1. Hey, we're doing great. It's fine. All of this to me is repulsive. All of this, 4-1 civilian to combatant ratio is absolutely war crimes. It's disgusting. So they're trying to justify their genocide, and I don't think it justifies it at all. Anyway, moving on. Who killed who? The October 7th assault began with a breach of the separation fence between the Gaza Strip and Israel as rockets were launched to provide cover for Hamas fighters using paragliders. Suicide drones also targeted Israeli army monitoring equipment and automatic machine gun towers. All of this, by the way, was trained out in the open. Hamas, you know how surveilled Gaza is, right? The most surveilled place on earth. Israel is proud to have one of the largest surveillance, most sophisticated surveillance systems in the world. Gaza is the most surveilled place on earth. And all this training with paragliders, et cetera, all done out in the open. And some of these videos were posted on Instagram beforehand. The attack, which Hamas named Operation Al-Aqsa Flood, initially targeted a series of military bases, outposts, and Israeli soldiers stationed at the Eretz Beit Hanun crossing. However, it also struck Israeli kibbutzes, settler communities located around the Gaza area. Various other civilian sites were also attacked, most notably the Nova Music Festival, where hundreds were reportedly killed. According to the Israeli narrative, Hamas intentionally targeted the festival. But we know from Hamas statements and others that Hamas didn't even know the festival was going to be there because it was moved there 2 days beforehand. And many of those killed at the Nova Music Festival, if you read the eyewitness testimony, they said they were being shot at by IDF, by police. Many, if not most, of those killed at Nova Music Festival were killed by IDF, by Israel. However, as early as November, Israeli police reports concluded that Hamas had not initially planned to target the festival. Hamas fighters only became aware of the festival during the operation. According to a report published by Haaretz, police analysis found that most partygoers had fled the Nova Music Festival approximately a half an hour before any gunfire was heard. Additionally, the report indicated that an Israeli military helicopter had opened fire, resulting in the deaths of at least some festival participants. But I think it's a lot, and I think that's why they had to shred and bury all the cars. Also, I know kids like to party. Look, I'm an old man these days. Okay, but 6:37 a.m., how many people are really left at the Nova Music Festival at that hour? Is it really? I don't know. You youngins in the chat can let me know. Are a lot of people at music festivals at 7 a.m.? Even if you were a hardcore partier, aren't you getting bored of it by 7 a.m.? Anyway, a United Nations human rights report released on June 12th confirmed the presence of at least 8 attack helicopters in various locations and noted that it was aware of reports suggesting these helicopters had been used to attack civilian vehicles at the festival site. And those vehicles were, say it with me, shredded and buried in undisclosed locations. An investigation published in Yediot Haranot in January concluded that at least 70 vehicles were destroyed by Israeli tank, drone, or helicopter fire following orders from senior Israeli military command to prevent the capture of hostages at any cost, which is the now infamous Hannibal Directive. We know the Hannibal Directive was used. The Hannibal Directive says, kill the hostages, kill the hostage takers, kill anyone who's around. That's what the IDF does. Several videos show Hamas fighters engaging in violent actions within civilian areas, including indiscriminate firing, killing non-combatants, and throwing grenades into shelters. So we shouldn't deny that those things went on. This evidence, and much of it is video evidence, the evidence highlights instances of violence, but it does not conclusively prove that these actions were part of a broader premeditated strategy. Furthermore, Hamas was not the only group involved in breaching the Gaza separation fence on October 7th. At least 5 different Palestinian groups reportedly followed suit, targeting Israeli military sites and settlements. It's estimated that over 4,000 people crossed the fence that day. While Hamas led the mission, it remains unclear how many Israeli deaths were caused by fighters from these other armed groups. It's important to note that the Hannibal Directive was used, and even some mainstream media, as I reported. Thank you, Kevin O'Neill, for the donation, for supporting the show. It's important to note that even some of the mainstream media is now reporting on how the Hannibal Directive was used, including ABC, the Australian broadcast channel. Kevin O'Neill says, Israel must know over time Eurasian industrial capital will favor Sunni Palestine over settler colonialism. Time favors economic inevitability. One state solution. Thank you, Kevin. And sorry, I've been caught up in the article, so I haven't seen some of the other donations. Thank you, Leopard, for the donation. Leopard says we are getting closer to World War III every day. I would certainly hope not, but I'm not sure you're wrong. And thank you again, Teresa, for supporting the show. Okay, so the results of an internal Israeli military investigation confirmed that the Hannibal Directive had been triggered that day. So even the Israeli military has admitted it. Now let's get to some of the other stuff that we were told was true about October 7th. Israeli media, government officials, and their Western counterparts have repeatedly circulated several unverified claims about the events of October 7th. These included allegations such as the beheading of 40 babies, infants being hung on clotheslines, and pregnant woman whose baby was cut from her. Many of these stories were initially promoted by the Zaka Rescue Agency, which has faced its own controversies, including corruption allegations. He's going very easy on Zaka. I did a deeper dive on them a while back. They're a completely false rescue network. Basically, what they do is they go in and they claim they're doing it for religious reasons. They basically get rid of the bodies. They destroy all forensic evidence. In this case, they staged scenes to make it look like things had happened that didn't. Also, on top of that, they have exactly zero medic training. So they claim to be this medical training group, this first responder group. It's complete garbage. According to confirmed reports, one baby died on October 7th, and obviously that is tragic. That baby was killed by a bullet during crossfire. Other claims regarding babies have all been debunked. Literally, the UN And every other agency, including many in the Israeli government, have said the number of babies killed on October 7th is one baby. And another fetus died when the mother was caught in the fire, and she died, and the fetus was not able to be saved. So that's the entirety of babies and fetuses that were involved in this. And of course, those are tragic. But you know what? They are not these stories we were told. They are not the babies in the ovens. They're not the babies on the clothesline. None of that. It was all lies. And yet you continue. Joe Biden said he saw a video of it. Like, that's how insane these people are. Thank you, Ann Gracious, for the awesome donation. Thank you for supporting the show. I really appreciate it. Okay, let's get back to some of this. Many, let's see. Yeah, okay, the baby. There have also been allegations of a mass rape campaign. I've covered that extensively as well. The mass, and I'm going to start saying, I'm going to say R word for the rest of this because unfortunately YouTube suppresses videos where you say R word or things like that. So therefore, we're now in a position where we can't even talk about preventing R word. It honestly, YouTube, what they're doing is just gross. You can't talk about who the people were that were the ruling German government in World War II. You can't say that name out loud either on YouTube. The largest investigation into the Hamas allegations published by the New York Times became controversial when the family of the woman cited in the central case in the story, publicly refuted the claims. The family of the woman who died on October 7th, who was killed on October 7th, said she was not R-worded, and in fact, it's offensive to them that the New York Times is putting this out there. The article quickly became the subject of a scandal, further casting doubt on all validity. There is currently no forensic evidence, zero documented intent, zero identified victims, zero credible witnesses supporting these claims. And Bill Maher also, just like Joe Biden, claims there's video. No, there's not, because it didn't happen. And I know one of the responses by Israelis or Israel defenders is, well, there's no victims because they're all dead. Okay, well, if that were true, guess what? There would still be other forensic. There was video of a lot of what went on October 7th. There would be video. There would be other witnesses. There are so many levels of ways to figure this out that it simply didn't happen. It doesn't exist. There was a UN report also that went in, and here's the thing. They only spoke to Israeli officials. They did not have the ability to actually investigate. They basically had the ability to go in and just listen to what Israel told them. So they concluded that Israelis were subjected to various forms of conflict-related sexual violence, though the report stopped short of providing definitive conclusions. Instead, it stated that such incidents were possible. Notably, the report debunked two specific allegations as unfounded. So they said there's conceivable sexual violence, but zero evidence of anything concrete and zero evidence of some sort of mass R-word plot. And again, Israel had the entire blueprint of what was going to go down on October 7th. And you know what wasn't in that blueprint? R-word. While it's difficult to determine how many were killed by Israeli forces versus Palestinian groups, the scale of destruction suggests Israel was responsible for a significant portion of the casualties. So this is a review of what went on October 7th, now that we have all of this evidence. And honestly, and you can check it out at Mint Press if you want to read every word of it, honestly, he goes easy. Like, he doesn't talk about the Nova Music Festival being moved there 2 days before. He doesn't talk about how even the New York Times has reported Israel had every detail of October 7th a year before. He doesn't talk about how Israel decided to stand down for many hours after it started happening. And I'm not saying those are failures. I'm saying he chose to do a very careful job of relaying what we now know about October 7th. And it is the opposite of what we were told for months. And many of us were, called whatever, cranks, conspiracy theorists, all these things for reporting this stuff. And it's all been proven true. Yeah, I stress this all the time. And I cannot stress it more. I am always right. Okay. Can we not just understand? I'm always right. Maybe it was one time. It was like one time I got something wrong, but basically always right. Okay. Whoa, that was epic. But I want to get to this Julian Assange story, and we'll see if we have time for anything after that. Thank you again, guys, for the Super Chat donations. If you want to sign up and support the show on a more regular basis, that would be incredible, because I am facing a crazy amount of suppression. I mean, it just gets worse and worse. Maybe it'll ease up after the election. I mean, a little. It's never going to ease up much, but maybe they'll slightly take the constraints off. I just brought to you yesterday that one of the heads of YouTube is the son of a former IDF, former Haganah Brigade who like perpetrated the Nakba. So maybe that's why I'm not doing great on YouTube these days. Anyway, so if you want to support this more regularly and a more regular basis, then sign up at leecamp.net. And when you get to the locals page, scroll down to become a subscriber. And the other thing is you can also support on Patreon, patreon.com/LeeCamp. Either one works. Either one, you'll get all kinds of perks, all kinds of extra segments. Awesome stuff. But before I get to this story on Assange, etc., let me just also tell you about my next Zoom comedy special, which I just announced for the first time yesterday. And it's in December. And if you get tickets now and you use the promo code, the early bird code, you'll get a ticket for $4. $4 for the next Zoom comedy event. It's December 11th and 14th. I always do two shows. One that's a better time for Europe and one that's better time for the US. The Wednesday, December 11th is at 1 p.m. Eastern, and Saturday, December 14th is at 9 p.m. Eastern. And you can grab your tickets if you use the promo code EARLYBIRD, all caps, as you're checking out. Then you'll get your ticket for a whopping $4. Let's see. And those tickets are all at, I wanted to put it on the screen. God damn mother son of a. There it is. LeeCamp.simpletix.com. LeeCamp.simpletix.com. I'll be doing plenty of comedy. Most of it brand new. Some of it might come from some of the comedy segments I've done. I've put up on YouTube. However, those are not seen by a lot of people. So I would imagine for most of you, it'll be essentially all new. I'll have opening comics, John F. O'Donnell from Redacted Tonight, Naomi Caravani from Redacted Tonight, and Eleanor Goldfield from Common Censored, among other things. And that's all leecamp.simpletix.com. It's all via Zoom, so you can watch anywhere in the world. And yeah, it's a great time. Oh, and it does sell out. A couple of the shows, the last shows we did sold out. So if you want your early bird tickets, grab them now. Type in the word early bird and get your tickets. Thank you, Hernie Hill, for the donation. Yes, solidarity. Love you. Okay. Julian Assange has spoken for the first time at an event since he gained his freedom. And this is a 5-minute clip. I'm going to play some of it. Yeah, I'm not going to play all of it because, but let's see what Julian had to say. He spoke at the EU about his persecution. And here he is.
The transition from years of confinement in a maximum security prison to being here before the representatives of 46 nations and 700 million people is a profound and a surreal shift. The experience of isolation for years in a small cell, the is difficult to convey. It strips away one's sense of self, leaving only the raw essence of existence. I am yet not fully equipped to speak about what I have endured, the relentless struggle to stay alive, both physically and mentally, nor can I speak yet about the deaths by hanging, murder, and medical neglect of my fellow prisoners. I apologize in advance if my words falter or if my presentation lacks the polish you might expect from such a distinguished forum. Isolation has taken its toll, which I am trying to unwind, and expressing myself in this setting is a challenge. However, the gravity of this occasion and the weight of the issues at hand compel me to set aside my reservations and speak to you directly. I have traveled a long way, literally and figuratively, to be before you today. Before our discussion or answering any questions you might have, I wish to thank PACE for its 2020 resolution, which stated that my imprisonment set a dangerous precedent for journalists and noted that the UN Special Rapporteur on Torture called for my release. I'm also grateful for PACE's 2021 statement, expressing concern over credible reports that US officials discussed my assassination, again calling for my prompt release. And I commend the Legal Affairs and Human Rights Committee for commissioning a renowned rapporteur, Suna Adelsdorter, to investigate the circumstances surrounding my detention and conviction and the consequent implications for human rights. My wife and my infant son were also targeted. A CIA asset was permanently assigned to train my wife, and instructions were given to obtain DNA.
I'm sorry if it's hard to hear now. They've changed the mic for some reason. He's talking about the CIA plot to either kidnap or kill him, which is now proven fact. We know they had that plot under Mike Pompeo.
My 6-month-old son, Matthew. This is a testimony of more than 30 current and former US intelligence officials speaking to the US press, which has been additionally corroborated by records seized in the prosecution fought against some of the CIA agents involved. The CIA targeting of myself, my family, and my associates through aggressive extrajudicial and extraterritorial moves.
Anyway, since I know it's hard to hear, and especially if you're on the podcast, you can't read the subtitles. So I'm gonna wrap it up there. He's talking about the CIA plot to kidnap him, to kill him. They stole out of the trash, because at the time he had a child or two children with Stella Assange, who I also interviewed, but they had not admitted that those were his children yet. And the CIA wanted to know, because obviously the CIA looks for pressure points. They look for ways to harm you. One of those would be to harm your family. So finding out if these are his children is important to them, because they are psychopaths and they want to harm his family. And so they actually stole a diaper out of the trash in order to DNA test the poopy diaper. This is how psychopathic our system is, our CIA is, our government is, and this is all being done was done to a journalist. And I was lucky enough to just attend, to just perform at a Celebrate the Freedom of Assange event in Washington, D.C. this past weekend. Eleanor Goldfield performed as well as Medea Benjamin, John Kiriakou, and Gabriel Shipton, Julian's brother. And so I got to chat with Gabriel, and I asked how Julian's doing, and he said, he's doing okay for what he's been through. And I think everyone wants to give him his space to recover and grow and be with his family after such a horrific torture. But obviously, this is his freedom is a massive win for activists. And I know at the end of the day, it was the Biden administration that had to agree to stop torturing him, basically. But that never would have happened without activists like all of you, like so many around this world who kept Julian Assange's name on the tip of everyone's tongue, who kept it in the papers, who kept it on social media, probably more so than the papers, because they were trying to suppress it. And the Biden administration would not have released him if it hadn't been for the fact that he was still an international story. In fact, at that time, he was probably still the most famous journalist and publisher in the world. So that's activism. That's all of us. It's all of you. And so I just want to thank all of you for the hard work many of you put in over the years to keep talking about Julian Assange and to fight for his freedom. Okay. I am going to wrap up a couple of scheduled notes here. So Government Secrets is normally every other Wednesday. We can't do it tomorrow. Unfortunately, I have lost a friend and I need to go to a memorial service. So there will not be a Government Secrets tomorrow. We will make up for that week off by doing it the following week, Government Secrets on Wednesdays. And then Thursday, I'm hoping to be back for another live stream. Hopefully Eleanor Goldfield will join me, but I'm not certain because of the driving I have to do in order to get to the memorial, etc. But hopefully I will see you Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. And for all of you who are new to this, new to my live streams, I hope you will sign up to the free emails at leecamp.com. And I live stream 4 days a week, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. But you can watch it anytime afterwards as well. And I will see you again on hopefully Thursday. Thanks all. Keep fighting, everybody.
Well, brother, I salute you, though, man. You're one of the few that bring together this tremendous artistic talent and still be in such deep solidarity with oppressed people.
It's an honor to be here because I'll tell you, Lee, you have one of the funniest shows on television, bar none.
It's an enormous pleasure to be here. While I was waiting, I was leafing through your wonderful book.
The same to you. I love your show. Be happy to come back anytime.
Lee, this is one of the great honors of my long career, just to be in the same earth with you.
I'm sure.
We're just so blinded. We have so many blinders on because our society doesn't want us to know things. And so it takes shows like your show, and
it is clearly designed to eradicate.
Hey, good to see you.
Hey, Jill, how are you? Julian, thanks for joining me. Honor to have you, brother.
Consumerism is a theory that people should behave this way to help each other. It's not.
Mr. George Galloway, thank you so much for joining me in these dark times.
Always a pleasure, my friend.
Thank you so much, Lee, for having me on. Keep fighting. Ha ha.